Nowadays, there's a question that comes to the mind of many people worldwide. How would hydroxychloroquine be used to treat SARS-CoV-2 infection while it is anti-malarial? Most importantly, doesn't it suppress immunity and that is why it is used in treating autoimmune diseases? This video will help you find some answers. Before explaining the postulated mechanisms of actions, I need to talk about two important concepts. The first is the endocytic pathway of the entry of SARS-CoV-2, and the second concept is the cytokine storm. Let's first get introduced to endosomes and their role in viral infections. Endosomes are membrane-bound vesicles formed via a complex family of processes collectively known as endocytosis. For viruses to enter the cell, they mainly adopt one of two mechanisms. The first is binding to specific host receptors with the help of the virus's spike proteins, where the envelope of the virus fuses with the plasma membrane. This is followed by the release of the nucleocapsid and then the release of the genomic material into the cytoplasm. The second mechanism is through receptor-mediated endocytosis, where the virus uses specialized machinery to fuse viral and host cell membranes, after internalization through the endosomal pathway. Viral fusion proteins drive this fusion reaction by undergoing major conformational changes. The specific trigger depends on the virus and very often involves the exposure to the low pH of the late endosome. This means that the fusion is an acid-dependent fusion. SARS-CoV-2 was found to get internalized using both mechanisms. Now, on to the second concept, the cytokine storm. Cytokine storm simply means the overreaction of the immune system. Cytokines are small protein messengers released by cells in the immune system and other systems in the body to coordinate the body's response against infection and trigger inflammation. The name cytokine is derived from the Greek words for cyto, meaning cell, and kinos, meaning movement. According to a recent paper published in Nature, Journal of Cell Death and Differentiation recently by Shi et al., it is believed that the transition from the first symptoms to acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, in COVID-19 patients is highly likely to be due to uncontrolled cytokine release. One of the figures in this paper shows that when SARS-CoV-2 enters the lungs, it triggers an immune response, attracting immune cells to the region to attack the virus, resulting in localized inflammation. But in some patients, excessive or uncontrolled levels of cytokines are released, which then activates more immune cells, resulting in hyperinflammation. This can seriously harm or even kill the patient due to multi-organ failure at the end. And among the therapeutic approaches to combat cytokine storm is to give immunosuppressants. Furthermore, cytokine storm might result due to mutations in specific genes. Hence, it will not be known whether a patient might develop cytokine storm or not unless the specific mutations are genotyped and validated. Now that we knew briefly about the endocytic entry pathway of SARS-CoV-2 as the first concept and the cytokine storm that SARS-CoV-2 can result in, let's go back to hydroxychloroquine as a treatment targeting the endocytic entry pathway. Historically, viruses that enter cells by the pH-dependent pathway have been identified by their sensitivity to inhibitors of endosomal lysosomal acidification. Inhibitors of endosomal acidification fall into three groups based on their modes of action. I'm going only to focus on the first class of agents, which is made up of lysosomotropic weak bases, because it includes chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. Both diffuse across membranes in a concentration-dependent manner, and these lysophilic weak bases then rapidly become protonated, thereby neutralizing the acidic environment of the endocytic vesicles. But do you think this is enough to treat COVID-19? Well, if we recall what I said in the beginning of the video about the SARS-CoV-2 life cycle, which I bet still has a lot of unknowns, we will find that the main entry pathway is not through endosomes, but via the direct plasma membrane fusion mediated by cell surface proteases, particularly the transmembrane protease serine 2, TMPRSS2. Hence, if the virus chose the main route, then hydroxychloroquine will not be effective, right? On the other hand, as we knew in the beginning, hydroxychloroquine is an immunomodulator suppressing the immune response and blocking the T cell activation. Hence, hydroxychloroquine is likely to attenuate the severe progression of COVID-19, inhibiting the cytokine storm by suppressing the T cell activation. So, does this mean that hydroxychloroquine will be the holy grail or that it is showing promising results currently? Well, the answer is no. In my humble opinion, for us to know whether hydroxychloroquine will be effective or not, it will all depend on the characterization of the different strains and substrains of viruses and which ones do enter through the endosomal pathway and when do they choose to enter through this pathway and what triggers this pathway. Furthermore, grouping the patients into those who are at risk of developing cytokine storm and those who aren't is important. Only then could we know which cohort of patients to treat with hydroxychloroquine. This, of course, is not an easy task. Now, coming to the end of this video, it is time to share your insights. Looking forward to hearing them or reading them in the comments section. Thank you for listening and stay safe.